let's get started with our interface overview. So I am here on the plans page. And on this left-hand side, I've got my Planbook menu bar. So the Planbook bar is where you're going to live most of the time. These are the most frequently used features in Planbook. The most commonly used one, of course, is the plans page at the very top. That's kind of your home base where you're going to be day in and day out. We have our plans display options up here. So whether you want a day view, week view, month, or even a list, if you prefer to see a list version of your plans by subject area, that can be really helpful as well. We have got our past years here up in the school year drop down. So when you select that little schoolhouse icon, it's going to show you all of your current and previous school years. So you can look at those plans and, view those and then pop back, of course, to your most current school year. Then we also have our calendar drop down. So if you need to jump ahead, to around the holiday time, you can click that there, select the date that you want to jump to, and you are there. On this right-hand side, we have our copy page, our search function. So if you're, thinking, where is my jazz lesson? For me, I taught elementary music. So, where are my jazz lessons? I can type into that search bar. And then we also have our export option. So that is where you would go, this little send to button, which looks like a little box with the arrow coming out the top. That's where you go to export your plans, whether you want a PDF, you want a Google Doc, a Word doc, you can download those there, and then you can print a paper copy of your plans. Then we have our user settings here on the far right, so the top right-hand corner. User settings is going to be used a little less frequently than your Planbook bar, I would say. This is where your account settings live, your display settings, and also your change history. So always like to point this one out as well, because this essentially is your giant undo button in Planbook. So when you click into change history, it's going to show you all of the most recent changes you've made in your account. So you can go in, hover over those actions that you want to undo and click undo, and it's just like it never happened. Moving down, we have our support section here. So our help center is linked here. That is where you can find all of our how-to articles, our instructional videos. So that's a really great resource. And you can also schedule a meeting with us. If you get in the help center, you're not really finding what you're looking for, or you have an issue that you think would be better suited to a Google Meet type of format where we can share screens, you can schedule a meeting with a member of our team right there from your user settings in that top right corner. All right, and getting right into adding your new school year. So when you get logged in for, beginning of the school year time, this is the first thing that you're going to want to do, and typically the first thing that your account will prompt you to do. So to add your own individual year, this is for folks who are not connected to a school subscription. So you're like, hey, it's just me, I pay out of pocket. So you will typically, when you log in, get a pop-up that looks like this to add a school year. It'll just say, hey, looks like you're ready to go ahead and add that new school year. And you can follow the prompts here to add a year. If you're not quite ready and you've got some other things you're doing in your account, you can say, no, thanks, I'll do it later. And then if you don't receive the pop-up, or if you click no thanks, I'll do it later, you can always add that school year manually by navigating to your Planbook bar. So that is on the left-hand side of your screen, and you'll go right on down to school years. And then in your school years list, you're going to have all of your past and current school years listed here. The type column in Planbook is across just about all of our features, and that just lets me know who has created that item. If it's teacher type, then it's something that I have created. If it's school or district type, that is something that school or district admin have pushed out to me that they've created. So to add that new school year, I'm going to go to this plus sign in the top right corner. One thing about Planbook is when you're adding something new, it is going to be the plus sign in the top right corner. So great continuity across the platform there. We're going to hit add new year, and it's going to ask us to name our school year. I like to keep it simple. So in this case, it'd be, 2026, 2027, but that's really just for your own reference. So you can name it whatever you would like. You'll enter the start date and the end date of your school year here. Typically, people will enter their instructional days. So the first day that kiddos are there, and then the last day of school typically is the start and end of their school year. And then it's going to ask what classes you would like to copy over from your previous year. So you can bring everything over if you're like, nothing's really changing. I'm teaching all the same classes. Maybe you're not teaching ELA this next school year, so you can toggle that off. So options there, you can also hit none if you're like, everything's totally different. I need to just kind of start fresh. So then when we make our selections there, we'll hit continue. And this is actually a newer page here in the add school year section. Came out, maybe a couple weeks ago, but this just allows us to get a little more granular in terms of the things that we want to copy over to that new school year. So I like to, when I get here, hit my custom copy so that I can see kind of all of my options here. So under class schedule, maybe I need to keep my class days. My classes are scheduled on the same days of the week, but maybe my schedule is changing. They're going to be different times. So I don't want to copy over my class time. So I'd hit do not copy for that. So everything else we can go through, make our decisions, either copy all or copy none to, or of course our custom copy. We can click through the things that we want and don't want. And from there, we're going to hit add school year. Perfect, perfect. So that was how to add that year. If you are an individual subscriber and you are adding your own school year. This next section is for when you are adding an administrator created school year in your account. So you're connected to a school subscription and your admin has pushed out a school year. Now, you might be connected to a school subscription and your admin doesn't create the school year. That's totally fine. You can go in, create your own school year as well. But for folks who have admin that do add the school year, this one is for you. So you will, when you log in, if your administrator has auto-generated the school year, you're going to get a pop-up that's like, hey, your admin created the school year for you, and it's been pushed out to your account to complete the process, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll decide what you want to copy from in terms of your previous school year. So you can select that there. And then same kind of process, select the classes you want to copy from, and then you'll go ahead and select the information that you want to copy to that school year. So pretty similar. And then you can hit continue. You can also hit, no thanks, I'll do this later, and you can follow this process whenever you're ready. If your admin did not auto-generate the school year and you don't get a pop-up like this, that's totally fine. You can go and add that school year anytime by going on down to your school years page. So that little schoolhouse icon. And we're going to go ahead and find our plus sign in the top right corner to add something new. And then it's going to say, hey, good news, your school or your district has created that new school year. To use it, select it from the list below. So I'll select that year that I need and hit continue, that big red button. And I am good to go there. So here is another chance for you guys to go ahead and sign in if you were not able to. And then if you guys are having trouble seeing the sign in link from the chat as well, feel free to drop your email address in the Q&A, and then me and Devin can grab those out and make sure that you get all the follow-up materials. But with that, we can go ahead and take questions about adding the new school year.
All right, Monica says, is there an option to add federal holidays to the plans? Yes, those are going to be done not within your school year, but actually you would add those as an event, which we're actually going to get to later in our session. I think it's our last topic here. You would add all of those as events.
Perfect. And Michelle, I am grabbing your email address, making note of that. Perfect. Any other questions about the school year? And if, oh, we've got a couple coming in. Perfect. Okay, Samara says, last year I used extra lessons on the first few weeks. Those aren't copying over the same way. Yes. So Samara, with the extra lessons, sometimes when you copy those over to the new school year, the system gets a little confused in terms of where to send those. So if you want, I would say go ahead and email us at support@planbook.com. We can take a look inside your account and help you get those plugged where they need to go in the right order.
And actually, Samara, I was the one chatting with you this morning about that, and I mentioned you would want to add those extra lessons in your new school year the same way you did in your old school year. But yes, we can continue chatting about that via email.
Totally.
All right. My school creates it, but when I went to copy over my plans from last year, my schedule went over, so I went to change the times. I'm not sure what the question is there, but when you add that school year, if you accidentally did or did not copy something in from the previous year, for example, your admin pushed out that year and you went and you copied your schedule, but you actually didn't mean to, or you copied in all your lessons, but you didn't mean to copy in all your lessons, you actually wanted to kind of start with a blank slate with just your classes. No big deal. What we typically recommend in that situation is that you actually just go to your school years page and delete the 26-27 school year you've just added. It's not going to ruin anything. Don't worry. It just means you're going to delete that school year that didn't have the content copied over that you wanted. And then you can go to that school years page, add a new school year, just go through that process again, and then make the correct selections about what you want to copy in. And then, of course, once you're in your new school year, you can update and change your schedule or do anything from there as well.
Totally. And Anita says, I tried this, but the class did not copy over. So Anita, really similar to what Devin just said, I would recommend going back and either removing the year that you created and then re-copying those over. Or if you want to leave the year that you have already, you can always go and copy classes over through your copy page. So that is located on the plans page in the top right-hand corner. It's that little icon that looks like two pieces of paper sitting on top of each other. You can go in and tell it on the left-hand side to copy from your previous school year and copy those classes and those lessons over to where they need to be.
Okay, Lisa says, I teach at both high school and community college levels, so I need separate dates. The confusion is only one date can be marked current. So you can have separate school years. So if you teach at separate locations or you need a different schedule type, you can absolutely have two 26-27 school years. When you see that little star marked as current on your school years page, that doesn't mean that that's the only year you can work in. It just means that that's the most recently selected year on your plans page. But you can absolutely use that school years drop down at the top center of your plans page and click between school years, and you can have two 26-27 school years and work separately within those years during the current year. So again, that current year doesn't mean, you know, that's the only year that you can work in right now. It just means that's the most recently one that you selected on your plans page.
And then Beth says all of your plans were erased from last year. So no worries, they are still in our cloud. They're still safe and sound. So if you want to email us support@planbook.com, we can go in and restore those plans, get them back to where they need to be so that you can get them copied over as needed as well. Perfect, perfect. And then Claudia, for it being your first year, when you log in, typically it will already have created a school year for you. So all that you'll have to go in and do is go to your school years tab on that left-hand side, and then you can update the start and end date of your school year if you need. But otherwise, yeah, you should be all set to roll on that one.
All right, Anita, I only wanted to copy ELA, but not the other classes. Nothing is showing up in the new school year. So again, I would say if you've gone through that new school year setup process and you're seeing that what you did or didn't select, your content didn't copy over the way that you wanted it to, I would go straight back to that school years page, delete the 26-27 year you just added, and then go through that add school year process again, make the updated selections and add that school year and see if that imports everything successfully. If you find you're doing that once or twice and you're making the right selections and it's not copying in, email us at support@planbook.com. Let us know what you're seeing and we can test within your account and hopefully get that content over successfully. But again, just delete that school year, go through that process again, and you should be all set.
Perfect. And then, Anne, I grabbed your email out of the chat, so we're all set there. And then we've got another one. If we have a year of lessons from last year, but I want to send the year to another teacher who is taking over the year, can I do this? So yes, absolutely. And it depends if you're connected to a school subscription in terms of how we can get the plans transferred over. But yes, that is something we totally can do. I would reach out to support, email us, and let us know the person that you would like to send the plans to. So give us their email and the specific school year that you want to copy to them, and then we can get it sorted.
If there's an administrator on your account, or if you have administrator access, an admin can also copy complete school years between teachers as well.
They sure can.
All right, Cortez says, can I copy over my lessons from week to week because my principal doesn't know why it won't? I'm a special education teacher, so I use some of the same things per IEP. Yeah, so if you wanted to copy your content, for example, my ELA class from this week, I want to copy all of those lessons into next week. You can absolutely do that from the copy page, which is the two little rectangles in the top right corner of your plans page, which shall be highlighted earlier in our session. I'm also going to be talking about adding your lessons and using our lesson actions menu. And I think extending those lessons into next week would also work really great for that. So if you're able to hang around when we talk about adding your lessons and extending lessons, I think that would work really well for you too, Cortez.
For sure. And Cortez, it sounds like you have a schedule similar to mine. I taught elementary music, so I lived on the copy page a lot just because I was on a crazy wheel schedule. So yeah, we can totally get that ironed out for you.
All right, Suzanne, when I copied over the new school year, the dates were all wrong. So I would check your school year start and end date. It's going to copy in those lessons from last year into your current year based on when they start. So for example, if in your 25-26 year, your ELA lessons start on week 2 and the first lesson or first week is blank, when you set up your 26-27, your first week is also going to be blank. Your lessons are going to start on week 2. So it doesn't do like a direct copy into the exact dates. It just copies them as they were in 25-26 into your start date of 26-27. So if you go to that school year's page, you can check and adjust your start and end dates. Unless you're using an admin year, then they would have to do that. But I would just check that your school year start and end are correct, and then just keep that in mind about copying from year to year. If there's empty lessons in your 25-26, there's also going to be empty in 26-27. It's just going to be a complete as is copy slapped into your 26-27 year.
Awesome, guys. Great questions. And moving in to our next topic here. So setting up your class schedule. So that is a big one. We are going to do that from our Planbook bar. So we're going to navigate to the left-hand side of the screen once again, and we're going to select classes. So this is about the third one down. It's that open book icon there. And once we are there, we can add brand new classes. So maybe, even if you copied over classes from last year, maybe you're teaching a new class you need to add, or if you're brand new to Planbook, you don't have any classes in there yet, no worries. We can do that all from the plans page. So I'm going over to my left-hand side to classes. I've got my grid on the right. I'm going to go to add class. So plus sign in the top right corner once again. I've got a new little class box down here at the very bottom, and I'm going to add a social studies class. I can then update the color of the class by selecting that little paint palette and then hitting done. Then if I'm ready, I can hit apply, or I can hit more details. That's going to take me straight through to my class editor box here. So I can go in, I can update that class name. I can also adjust the class start and end date. So maybe this is a class that only lasts for a semester. For example, I can toggle off the use school start or use school end date there. And then that will give me the ability to change the start or end dates in the fields there. For that one, we're just going to use school start and end. Then under schedule, I typically like to select for frequency in that drop down. I like to select custom because that's going to bring up a ton of options for me. Maybe this class only meets Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I can toggle off my Tuesday, Thursday, and then I can enter my start and end times in the field here. And you can enter it down to the minute. And we want to select 2 p.m. instead of 2 a.m., of course. We'll go on down here, make those choices. And then we can see I clicked on this little copy button right here, and that automatically copied the times over to the other days that this class meets. So really super quick way to get those filled in. Now, if you're like, well, on Wednesday, we actually don't, meet until about 2:45, that's totally fine. You can click into this field and adjust that to 2:45, for example. Then once I make my changes, I can go ahead and hit save. And now I've got my social studies class there on the bottom, and I'm ready to roll. It's on that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. All right. And then the other thing that we can do is edit current classes, right? So maybe you have classes that came over from last year. You need to go in and edit them a little bit. There's actually 2 ways that you can go in and edit classes in Planbook. The first is going to be through that class editor box that we were just in. So to get there, I will hover over the class that I want to edit. We're in the classes page, of course. So ELA, I want to update. I'm going to click that little edit button. And here I am back in my class editor. So I can come in, I can change that class name. I can change my formatting for this class. Again, I can change the color with my paint palette, make my selection there, update the start and end date like we just showed you. So if it's, maybe just a semester long, I can also go in and edit this schedule. So then I have 2 options. It's going to say, do you want to edit the current schedule or do you want to add a new schedule? So edit current schedule, I think, is perfect for when you're at the beginning of the school year, because that is going to also change the schedule of any prior lessons, right? So it's changing the schedule for all of them. So at the beginning of the school year, not as much of a concern. Add new schedule is great for maybe you are teaching that ELA class the whole year, but first semester it starts at 9, second semester starts at 9:15, right? So maybe when it's January, you want to go in, you want to make that start time to 9:15. Then I would select add new schedule so that I can keep the schedule of all of those prior lessons. So in this case, we're just going to edit the current because we're here at the beginning of the school year, and hit continue. Then I can go in and make any of those changes that I need. So I can adjust my times here. Maybe this class is meeting a little bit later this year. Again, I can use my handy dandy little copy button there and then hit the check mark to save. And then it's going to show me those changes out here for ELA. The second way that you can go in and reschedule classes, or you can actually schedule classes this way, is with the drag and drop method. So I think this is my personal favorite because it's really, really handy dandy and easy once you're out here on your grid. So of course we clicked into classes, and I need to do some rescheduling. So I'm going to hit that edit schedule button on top of my grid. That makes all of my classes drag and droppable. So I'm going to drag music down. I'm going to get it scheduled to the minute here and apply it to all the days of my school week. So now that is a quick reschedule and it is done. So I can go ahead and hit the done button going forward. I've got that music class scheduled the way I need it to be. Now, the other piece of the drag and drop is I can actually, when I first create a class, remember backtracking when we first add that little class box, we had a check mark on the far right of our class box that said apply. So if I hit that little check mark, it's going to drop that new class up here in my no time specified, which is totally fine. You can have classes that don't have times in Planbook if you would like. Those are just going to appear in alphabetical order out on your plans page. For me, I always like to assign a time. So in the same way that we rescheduled with the drag and drop, we can go in, hit edit schedule. We can grab that no time specified class and drag it on down to the time where it meets. So again, love the drag and drop. It's really great for a number of things. And at this time, we can go ahead and take questions about setting up your schedule. So feel free to drop those in the Q&A. Right, Beth says, how do you get to the drag and drop feature? Yeah, great question. So I am actually going to back up here and show you. So when you're here on your classes page, so Planbook bar down to classes, the drag and drop feature can be accessed by hitting this edit schedule button. So once you do that, that's going to make everything drag and droppable. And then when you're done doing your dragging and dropping, you can hit that done button. And that's just going to lock in all of your classes to the new time.
Okay, Jay, this is a great question. I'm glad you asked it. He says, I teach the same class multiple times a day. Can I add one class to more than one time slot? Yes, absolutely. So if you are scheduling on that schedule grid that Shelby was just showing you using the drag and drop, you can obviously, as she showed you, drag and drop your classes to a new time. But what you can also do is grab a class from the left-hand side, so where they're listed, and pull it into your schedule and drop it in. So for example, if you have a reading class in that list over on the left, once your schedule grid is unlocked, you click edit schedule, you can drag it in to a Monday. If it's already on Monday, drag it into Monday again. And that's going to give you a second class time of that same class on the same day. If you prefer to use that edit schedule option that she showed first, you can also click to edit the class over on the left. And if you click edit schedule there and you scroll down just a bit, you'll have an option that says add schedule day, and that's going to do the exact same thing. So you can do that on the drag and drop or within the edit schedule for the edit class option.
Perfect. And then Jacqueline, I saw a spot for collaboration. How can we share the lesson plans with other teachers? So I actually just dropped in the chat our landing page for getting started with sharing. We are actually not going to get into sharing during this session today, but we do have 3 different types of sharing available in Planbook, and our landing page there will give you all the information that you need to know to get it set up.
Eric says, when I go to classes, I have none of the classes there. There are no tabs. So if you have classes on the plans page, they should be on your classes page. If you don't have any classes on the classes page, you can click to add class in the very top right-hand corner if you're just setting up for the first time. If your classes page is completely blank and you can't even do that, please send us a screenshot to support@planbook.com, because that should not be happening. But if you're setting up for the first time, just click that add class in the very top right corner.
Perfect. All right. Sandy says, how much time do we have to change class times? Things changed last year and I got really busy and was not allowed to change past times. So, and Devin, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you go in, I think events is the thing that kind of times out after, is it 30 days?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was focusing on the next question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you're trying to delete a previous schedule, or you should be able to update a class schedule anytime on your classes page.
So when
it
you
shouldn't matter when in your school year you're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you go in, Sandy, and go, so you'll go hover over the class, hit edit, you'll go down to your schedule, hit edit schedule, and then it'll ask you to edit the current schedule or add a new schedule. That's going to be the one that you want to select so that you can put in the new time going forward. So it should work for you there. But if not, definitely email us, let us know.
Yeah, and if it was an event that you've added that you were trying to change, those do have a limit on it. So if you were getting something that said, you can't change this 30 days in the past because we don't want to upset the schedule or whatever that pop-up notification says, that means you've added that as an event, not a class. Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to mention is that if you're on your classes page and you try to click on a class on the left and you're like, it's not letting me edit, I only see the option to like export, I can't click on these class details, that means that you're not in your current school year. So you're likely in a 25-26 school year or a previous year, not in 26-27, because if you're working in a previous school year, you're not going to be able to edit those classes either. Okay, Michelle says at the elementary level, I need to see the schedule timing on the plans page. Bell work 8:05, 8:15. I might have a 10-minute class on, say, SEL. Yep, you can add a 10-minute class on your classes page. They might show up a bit smaller on the classes page, but they'll look just like a regular class on your plans page. So when you drag and drop, when you drop and adjust that time to be a bit more detailed, you can add a 8:05 to 8:15 just as you would a longer length class.
All right, and then Anita, do you have my connection? I don't hear all the words. Is there a transcript? So Anita, yes, there should be a transcript going right now that's kind of gathering all of what's being said. But again, we're also recording this as well. So if you're having a hard time getting the audio connected right now, when you get that recording, it should be able to be heard once it comes to you there. And then also, can you take a class from a different year and also from another teacher? Yeah, you sure can. So you can copy over a class from a different year in your account, but you can also take it from another teacher as well. The teacher would just have to go in and set up a sharing permission for you and give you access to the class, and then you can pull it over from your copy page.
Okay, can you drag and drop to another week? For example, I prepare a cover lesson and keep dragging it until I use the cover lesson plan while I'm away. So I plan it now, but keep dragging it for a few weeks. It sounds like maybe you want, if you're planning your lessons for a class, you want to use them for several weeks at a time, if I'm understanding correctly. And that wouldn't necessarily be done on the classes page. That would be on the plans page. Once you've actually entered that lesson content, you could then, as I was mentioning, I think to Cortez earlier, you could extend those lessons for as many dates as you want for weeks into the future, which I will be getting into next after we do lesson layouts. I'll talk about adding your lesson content, extending lessons, and I think that that would be what you're looking to do there.
Yeah, and then Michelle says on the beginning of the elementary level, I spend a few weeks on routines and procedures, which has a different schedule. What's the best way to go about this? So Michelle, I would go in and you can plug in, your routines and procedures classes, enter it as a class. And then when you're ready to kind of switch up the schedule, you can go into your classes and then so you'll go edit, you'll go to edit schedule, and then it'll ask you if you want to add that new schedule going forward. So that's what I would suggest, is to select add a new schedule. So then you can go in and you can move things around, like starting from a certain date. So yeah, that's something that you can handle on the classes page too.
All right, Linda's asking, and also we're reading these out loud because when people watch the recording, they're not going to be able to see the questions. So we want people that are watching to know what question we're answering so that that's the most helpful for them. Is it possible to start and end the same class repeatedly throughout the school year? I have classes that start and stop every other month. You can. So when you add a class, those classes on the left of your classes page, if you click edit, you can add an end date to that class, and that will remove it from your schedule after that date. You would then have to add that class again to your schedule for that specific month. I think what may be easier, honestly, would be to just keep that class in your schedule for the duration of your school year. And then you'd only be adding your lessons on the months it takes place. But then you could use that filter icon on your plans page, and you could hide those classes from your view on the months that you're not teaching them. So you could add start and end dates to that class, but then you'd have to kind of keep doing that every time it started back up, as opposed to if you just kept that class in your schedule. And then the filter icon is on your plans page. In the top left corner, there's like a bunch of bars with circles that says filter plans, and you can deselect certain classes from your view at any time. So if it's a month that you're not teaching that specific class, I would just hide it from view, get it out of your plans page, and then when you need it back, just put it back in your view. I think that might be a bit easier than trying to schedule for every other month.
All right, and then Eric, what was the link for the screenshot? It doesn't allow me to add a class. So Eric, likely you were in your previous school year. That's the only time when you're on the classes page and it won't let you add a class. So what you're gonna wanna do is go and add that new school year first, because it will not let you add classes to that previous school year. So first go over to your left-hand side, go down to school years, add your new school year, and make your selections in terms of if you wanna copy anything over, and then from there, then you can go to your classes, and then it should allow you to begin adding classes.
And if you are in your year and you wanted to send us that screenshot, it's support@planbook.com, SUPPORT @planbook.com, and we can take a look at the screenshot. And the link, Shelby, did you just put it in the chat once again?
I did. I dropped both of them just in case.
Okay. When I change my lesson, it asks if I want to shift or not. I say yes, but then it says I'm going to lose plans for the end of the year. So depending on the schedule changes that you're making, it will shift your plans accordingly to accommodate for whatever schedule change you just made. If you have lessons in that class for the duration of your school year, and you, for example, remove it from a day, which is going to push some of those lessons forward, it might then push lessons off the end of your school year. And a solution for that is if you want to make those schedule changes, maybe last year you taught this class 5 days a week, this week you only teach it 4, but now if I remove that day, I'm not going to have room for those lessons. You could extend the end of your school year. So maybe add an extra month to the end date of your school year so that when you do shift lessons around, they're not going to be pushed off the end of your school year. You're giving yourself a little wiggle room at the end so that when you make those schedule adjustments, there's still room for those lessons to exist and you can pull them back into your schedule as needed.
And then Cortez, can I adjust the standards in the lesson plans? My student's IEP doesn't match certain standards. So Cortez, I'm going to drop a link in the chat. I think that would be really helpful for you. This is our My List feature. So essentially you can go in and add your own, whatever they may be, whether it's, IEP things, accommodation things, and it's going to allow you to add those items to a drop down so that when you're planning, you can just quickly go hit My List, and then you can just check mark and add whatever you need to add for that lesson. Awesome, guys.
Adding different standards in the lesson too. So if there's specific standards that your students do use, they're just not the ones you're seeing, maybe we can help you find them too when we get into our standard section.
Totally. All right, guys, moving right along, and I am actually going to pass it over to Devin to talk about lesson layouts.
All right, so when we say lesson layout in Planbook, we are talking about the little tabs within your lesson. These are your lesson sections, and again, in Planbook, we call them the lesson layout. So in the little video here, you can see that when you click on any of the classes on your plans page, you can click between these tabs, and those are the lesson layout tabs. These tabs are completely customizable. You might just be using a Planbook default that you selected when you created your account, and that may work for you, and that's great. But if you wanted to adjust those lesson sections, you can customize them to what you'd like, or you can also use a layout that maybe your administrator has pushed out to you. So if you wanted to update those lesson sections or maybe access one that's been added for you, you would head to your user settings icon, which is that little circle or icon in the very top right hand corner, user settings, and then head down to the fourth option that says lesson layouts. On the lesson layouts page, similar to the school years and pretty much every other Planbook feature, you're going to see that type column. This indicates if it says teacher, that means it's specific to my own account. Maybe it's one I've added, or it's my default that's already automatically in my account. If it says school or district, again, this means that your administrators at your school or your district have pushed these out for you to use. The little star next to the layout where it says current, that means that this is the current default that I'm using within my account. This is the layout that is applied to all of my classes currently as the default layout. So from this page, you can create your own lesson layout, you can edit your own, or you can access your school. So first we're going to talk about applying the school lesson layout. So if you have those little school type and your admin says, hey, make sure you're using our lesson layout, this is where you would go to make sure you have that applied successfully. So again, user settings, lesson layout, and then you could just mark that layout as current, and that is going to apply that layout to all of your classes. That's going to be your new default moving forward. You can click on that layout. It says customized. You'll notice that when you click on it to customize, you can't change what those lesson sections say. Your admin would have to do that. But what you can do is you can format them. So if you wanted a different font type, you wanted to change the colors of the title or the body of those lesson sections, you could customize that here. But this would also let you kind of view what your admin has set up for you to see what those lesson sections are. So you can click on that layout just to view it, or you can customize the format of those lessons. lesson sections, but you wouldn't be able to edit it. And again, if you wanted to make that your current, just click the little star next to that layout, and that's going to be your new default layout moving forward. If maybe you're not connected to a school or you are on your own, you want to create your own lesson layout, you can absolutely do that from the lesson layouts page at any time as well. So if you click the plus icon in the top right, you can add an additional lesson layout. Or if you just want to simply edit and update the one you're using now, you can click edit next to the one that is your current. You could rename it if you'd like. And then when you scroll down here, you will see now you have the pencil icon next to each of these sections where you can click to edit. So you can click on that pencil icon and you can rename these sections to be whatever you'd like. So maybe I want to rename this to daily objective. You can also enable new sections. So if you're working and you're like, I need more sections than this, scroll to the bottom and you see those text sections. They might say disabled. And if you click on them, you can enable them. You can also use the little arrow icons next to each lesson title to drag and drop them to reorder them. So if it's a teacher layout, you can make all of these updates and make your lesson sections whatever you'd want them to be. And similar to the admin layout, you can also format your lesson sections. So you can change the font type, the color, the text. You can bold those sections, whatever you'd like over there. That's the little pencil icon to the right. That's the formatting button. Once you click apply, those changes, if that's your default layout that you're using, whatever you update there on your layouts page, when you head back to your plans page and click on the class, those lesson sections would automatically be updated to what you updated there on the layouts page. All right, let's open up the Q&A and happy to answer any questions you have about lesson layouts. Michelle says, I changed my lesson layout and it did not change my lessons page. A few things to check. I would make sure that you have the star marking that layout as current before you leave your lesson layouts page. Make sure you, once you've edit your lesson sections, you make sure that that is your current layout. The other thing to check is that you can also manually add a lesson layout from your classes page. So if you've previously added a different layout to each one of your classes, it's not going to overwrite that if you mark it as current on the layouts page. So another thing to check is to head over to your classes page, click on a class, and there's a lesson layout dropdown, and just make sure that you don't have a different layout applied there. You can also manually apply the one that you want on the classes page there, just to make sure that that is the layout that that class or all classes use moving forward.
Then Jessica says, would changing a lesson layout in an already copied lesson cause me to lose information in the lesson? So it can, depending on how much the lesson layout has changed. So in the system, when Devin was showing us lesson layouts, we saw those little things that said, you know, text 1, text 2, text 3, that sort of thing. So when you change the lesson layout, the system only knows to copy over, you know, text 1 to text 1, text 2 to text 2. So I would recommend, if you're going to change a lesson layout, try to keep it as close to the original one as possible. The other helpful thing to do is you can add with your new lesson layout, you can disable more of those tabs too. So going forward, you can kind of keep the information that you have and then add information going forward as well. But if you get into your account and you kind of hung up on, you know, changing that lesson layout, or you have an idea of what you'd like to do, but you have questions about it, definitely reach out. We can pop into your account, take a look, and figure out what's going to be the smoothest transition.
All right, Mary says, I created lesson layouts for my reading teachers at various grade level bands. So when they pick my layout, it applies only to their reading class. they will be picking lesson layouts for math, social studies, science that will also be created. So in this case, they wouldn't want to probably go to their lesson layouts page and select that reading as their default, because that's going to apply to all classes. Instead, what they would want to do is go to their classes page, which is the Planbook bar on the left where Shelby went previously to schedule classes. If you click on any of your classes over on the left-hand side, click there to edit. As I was just mentioning previously, there's a lesson layout drop-down menu for each class on the classes page. So that is where your teachers would want to go if they have subject-specific layouts they want to apply. So again, hit classes over on the Planbook bar on the left, click to edit a class on the left, and then use the lesson layout drop-down menu. And then they can click on the reading, apply your reading layout there. They can click on math and apply the math specific layout there. What we're showing here on the layouts page is where you would go to create the layout and apply it default to all classes. But if you're looking to apply to a specific class, that would be done on the classes page.
All right, and then Monica, can you show us how to get to the lesson layout section again? Yes, I sure can. Let me back up a little bit here and show you. So you are going to go to the very top right corner to user settings here. So that little icon, and then it'll be the fourth one down in the menu that pops up, and lesson layouts, that little tab icon there. So that's how you can navigate.
All right, Michelle says, can you explain the list? I'm assuming you mean my list. I want a list of activities, the first thing I see in the layout. So the My List tab that you're seeing in your lesson layouts, this allows you to create your own like checklist type of items, similar to our standards tab, like I'll be showing when we start adding that lesson content here next. You can't type into that section, but it'll give you a predetermined list that you've created that you can kind of check and add those to your plans. So if that's what you were looking to do, you would want it to enable that My List tab. And then you'll see when you go to your user settings menu, which is the same place you went to access your lesson layout, you have a My List option there, and that's where you would go to actually create that list of items. So once you've enabled that My List in your lesson layout, and then you create your My List and your My List tabs, that would be available in your plans for you to check within that tab of your lesson layout moving forward.
All right, Jessica says, is it better to create a lesson in the plans page or in a lesson bank? How do I add lessons created in the plans page to my lesson bank? For example, I alternate science and social studies to align with ELA, so finding lessons in a school year can be difficult to align with the new ELE curriculum. That is a fantastic question. So in terms of plans page versus lesson bank, so when you enter a lesson on the plans page and enter it into one of your classes, that means that that lesson is locked into a calendar day, right? So it's assigned to a certain day. When you create a lesson in a lesson bank, it is not associated with any calendar day. So the lesson bank is kind of just like a separate file cabinet where you can keep a ton of plans that aren't going to be connected to any date. So I would say for your purposes, I would recommend, I think, the lesson bank, so that you can, you're not having to search and look through your classes to find lessons in the school year. You can just go to your lesson bank. You can find exactly what you need. And then from there, you can copy those lessons individually into your plans page with a copy paste. Or if you want to kind of bulk copy things over, you can do that from your copy page. So on your plans page, there is that copy icon in the top right corner. So the two pieces of paper stacked on top of each other. And then on the copy from side, you would just select your lesson bank. And then on the copy to side, you would specify where in your plans you want those lessons to be dropped going forward.
If you're able to access the chat, I just popped in there how to copy lessons to and from a lesson bank using that copy page. So if you can grab that from the chat, I think that would be helpful. If not, you can also access in your user settings. You can go down to the Help Center and find that article there too, how to copy to a lesson bank.
All right, guys.
All right, so we are going to talk about adding your events now. So events, very similar to all of our other features, can be added by an administrator at your school, or you can add those by yourself within your own Planbook account if you're not connected to a school, or if your admin does not add those for you. We always recommend that anything that is not a class that you teach, you add in as an event. So definitely do not add a class as an event. So don't add your math class as an event and plan your lessons there. That's not going to work well in the future. But if you have things like staff meetings, PLCs, your planning days, your spring break, your no school days, all of those things are really great to add as an event. All right, so from the plan book bar on the left, you would head down to that fifth option there, and that says events. This is where you would go to view all of your current and previous events, and to click I want to highlight too, in the type columns, like all the other features, if it says school, that means your admin has added that event for you. If it says teacher, that means it's within your own individual account. To add an event at any time, again, you would just select that little plus icon in the top right to add a new event. You can also add an event straight from the plans page. So if you don't want to navigate over to that events page, you can also add an event from your plans page by clicking that little 3-dot icon next to the date and clicking add event. You would type in the title of your event, the event date. So if it's a one-day event, the start and end date would be the same, but you can also add in a repeating event or a week-long event. Like if it's your spring break, you can add in all of those dates at once. You don't have to add a time to your event. If you do, it'll show up at that specific time in your plans. For example, if you put in staff meeting 2 p.m., it's going to show up in your schedule at 2 p.m. If you don't add a start and end time, it's just going to populate to the top of your day, like a little reminder at the top there. If it's an event like in this example, Labor Day, you would want to mark no school day, and that will remove your classes from that day. If you've already added content for that day and then you mark it as a no school day, you will see this pop-up notification. So it'll say, would you like your plans shifted to accommodate for the no school day event? In most cases, you would want to push that red button and click to shift lessons. That way it's not going to delete any of your lessons. It'll just push them forward to your next school day. If your admin adds a no school day, you will also get that pop-up notification. So if there was like a snow day or a weather day in your school year, maybe in like December, and you've planned lessons for that day and your admin goes in and adds a no school day, or you go in and add it, it's not going to delete your lessons for that day as long as you click that yes, you want to go ahead and shift those lessons accordingly. If you click do not shift, it's going to delete those lessons from that day. You can also add a sticker to your event, which I think just makes it kind of stand out a bit more. We have stickers in 3 different design types, and we have pretty much any school or personal event that you could think of, we have a sticker for. So you can add that from your event by clicking those little 3 dots, or you can add it straight to that day by clicking again those little 3 dots and clicking add sticker. There's some examples here: first day of school, back to school night, first day of fall. Again, if you can think of it, we probably have that sticker. We took tons of suggestions from teachers and we add them upon suggestion as well. So let us know if there's a sticker you'd like to see if you're not seeing it. So what questions do we have about events?
And one thing too to note, I know Devin mentioned, definitely want to make sure that any of your classes that are going to house lesson information, want to make sure that we enter those as classes, not as events, because events are not able to be copied from school year to school year. So that's just something to keep in mind, just because of the nature of events too. You know, the first day of school might be on like a Monday one year and then a different date or a different day of the week the next year. So yeah, that's why the events don't copy over. So anything that you want to be able to easily copy from year to year, definitely enter that as a class.
Should we keep it moving, Shelby?
I think so. I think we're feeling good about, oh, here we go. We got one question. Sandy says, are we allowed to copy and paste manually events from a previous year? So Devin, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think you can copy the events over.
Yeah, that's correct. They're not, even if you select like school year, it might say events in there. The only way that events would copy from year to year is if you have that same date in your previous year, in your current year, which you likely do not. So since events are based on a specific date and time, they're not going to copy over successfully. If you've added like a full school year of events last year and you want to copy them all in at once in this school year, but obviously those dates are going to be different. Like Labor Day 2025 is not going to be the same date as Labor Day 2026. What you can do is click the little three dots up in the top right corner on your events page and click export events. That'll give you a full CSV of all of your events. You can tweak the dates of each one on the CSV, and then in the same way, click the three dots and then re-import them, and that will do a bulk import of all of your events. And if I know that's a very quick way to explain importing and exporting events, but if you go to the Help Center and click import events, it'll give you those steps. And it's actually a pretty simple process if you wanted to add them all at once instead of adding them individually within the new school year.
Totally. Then Suzanne, I'm not seeing the sticker. So I'm going to backtrack here and show you. So when you are here on your plans page, you should have a little three dots here next to your calendar days. So once you click into the actions icon, it'll bring up the little drop down menu here, and then you'll have to click into add sticker, and that'll take you to our little panel where you can select stickers from there.
All right, so let's head into our last, I believe our last section, which is start planning. So actually adding your lesson content and accessing your standards, which is a question we get a lot. So from your plans page, once you've got your classes in there, you've set up your lesson layout, you're ready to start planning, you can simply click on any of your classes to begin adding that lesson content. So click on any of your classes from the plans page. You might want to give your lesson a title, and then you can start adding content to any of your lesson sections within your lesson layout from there. All right, so once we open a lesson, we have our different tabs here, and you'll notice that some of the tabs within your lesson layout, when you click them, you can type into them, you can copy paste your content in. Those are what we call our text sections within that lesson layout, but you'll notice that the standards tab is not a text section, so you cannot type your standards in or the standards that you're using for that lesson. Instead, you'll be selecting those from our database, and we do have hundreds of national frameworks, and we likely already have the standards that you use. You just have to select them to be your defaults in your drop down moving forward. So to do that, you would navigate to your standards tab. Ours is first, yours might be somewhere else in your layout. And then you're going to want to click that plus icon to add your standards. If you are signing in for the very first time to add your standards, or you've never updated your frameworks, it's likely that your frameworks are just going to say US Common Core. And we hear so many times, you don't have my standards, I can only access Common Core. This is how you access the standards you need. All you need to do is click that little plus icon right next to where it says US Common Core. It'll say add frameworks. We're going to click that. And this is where you will search for and add the standards that you need. So in our case, we're going to use the Illinois State Standards. So we're going to start to type in Illinois. There it is. I'm going to check those. You can type in the name of the state if you're using state standards, or whatever those national frameworks are called, type them in there. From there, the subject pop-up should come up automatically. If it doesn't, just click the plus icon next to subjects, and then search for and add any subjects that you teach. You can add multiple here, so it doesn't just have to be for whatever class you clicked on. We just want to add these to our drop-down menu. So we're going to add all the subjects we teach so that we don't have to do this step again. We won't have to go back in, click the plus icon, and search for and add the standards we need any time that we're ready to add a lesson. These will be the defaults for us. They'll be saved in our drop-down for the rest of the year. And we won't need to change it again unless our frameworks change. All right, so once we add those, you can see there they are. They're now available for me in my drop-down menu. I can click to update the grade level that I need. If my standards are broken into categories, it'll help me locate them. I can search for specific categories using that drop-down menu there. I can even use the little filter icon to search for keywords that might be in the standards that I'm looking for as well. Once you find the standards you need, you can just use that little checkbox to apply them to that lesson. All right, once we click the check mark in the top right corner, now those standards have been successfully applied to that lesson. If you hover over them, you can see the frameworks and the subject, all the details for those standards there. And in the text sections, obviously you can type into those, but once you've added all of your lesson content, we definitely want to highlight our lesson actions menu. This is what I mentioned a few times previously when people were asking about maybe pushing the same lesson forward within their schedule or making some quick and easy updates from that plans page. So when you hover over any class on your plans page, there will be 3 dots in the right corner. If you click on them, you will see all of these options that are displayed over here on the right. So if you were looking to extend the lesson that you had planned on Monday for the rest of the week, so I want this lesson to automatically be applied, you can use this extend lesson option. You can use that little plus icon, plus, that would go up to 5 or whatever, however many days you want to extend that lesson, and click extend, and it's going to automatically apply that lesson for the next 5 days. So if you were looking to do that without, copying, pasting all of your content, extending is a great way to do that. Lots of teachers really like our bump option here. So, we know things are always changing in your schedule. If you're like, oops, I didn't even get to this lesson today, I need to bump it forward. You can click bump forward. It'll push that lesson to the next time that class is scheduled, which is likely the next day. And it would also push all of your plans after that forward accordingly, so you wouldn't delete or overwrite anything by bumping that lesson forward. I always like to talk about extend standards as well, because as we know when we're planning, sometimes, the math standards that I applied for this lesson on Monday, let's say, we're focusing on those same standards for the next 5 days. And I don't want to click, check those same 3 standards every single math lesson this week. So again, you can use the little plus icon, pump that up to however many lessons you want to extend, and then click extend standards. That'll automatically apply those standards for the next 4 or 5 days, whatever you selected. And then you can type in your lessons accordingly, but that saves you the time of having to apply those same standards to each day that you're teaching those. So again, lesson actions menu just has some really great time-saving tools for shifting things around, which we know as teachers you are doing constantly. So we talked about adding those standards, adding your lesson content, and the lesson actions menu. So what questions can we answer about that?
And at this time, we can also take any other questions about topics that we have covered today, because that was the last item on our agenda. So any other questions that you have regarding any of the other topics, feel free to drop those in as well. Mary says, could you provide a link for this part from the Help Center? Yes, we sure can. So I can go ahead, I'll drop in the standards, how to add the standards framework, and then I'll drop the lesson actions as well.
All right, I actually just popped in the lesson actions. So yeah,
perfect.
if you could add in standards, that would be great.
Yeah, you got it.
And then let me get back to the Q&A. Okay, if it's a standard specific, like you're looking for the exact standards you need, please just email support@planbook.com and give us those, and we can help you locate them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Hi, John.
Oh, no, John.
We're gonna send you the recording. So if you miss anything, you can rewatch that section that you needed. No worries.
And then Lisa, I'd like to know how to create lesson banks. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I will go ahead and drop that article in the chat. Again, so that's a really great option for if you want to have kind of a collection of lessons that aren't associated with any calendar dates. So great place to store those.
I'm going to answer one real quick while you're getting that pulled up. Jessica's had a good question about standards. Do I have to have all my standards selected in every class, or can I have it set to automatically see math and ELA and ELA? So in the example, and as I was talking, I said, check all the subjects you teach. But if you want to just add ELA in your ELA class, you can. What our system will do is whatever the last standards are that you access for that class, those are going to be your default the next time you open that class. So if you added all your subjects when you were planning in math, and then you add math standards, when you click on your next math class, it's going to default you to those math class and to those math standards. If you click on ELA and you use that drop down to click those ELA standards, moving forward the rest of your school year, it's going to default you to those ELA standards, even if you've added multiple subjects within each of your standards tab for each class. Whatever you've used last for that class, it's going to default those to you. So you don't have to worry about only adding, ELA to your ELA class dropdown. You can add them all at once, and then Planbook will remember what standards you're using for each class as you start adding them, and you won't have to kind of update your dropdown each time.
All right, and then Anne says, how do you lock user settings menu so that you can make selections? It keeps disappearing. So Anne, in if you go to user settings, there should be a little display settings section. And from within there, I want to say that it would be under maybe general. Okay, yes. Okay, so when you go, I'll say that again. So user settings in your top right. Then you will go to general, which is that first option that'll be available. There is a little section that says Planbook bar menu. So you can go and select whether you want the menu to expand when you hover over it, or just kind of, to stay up, that kind of thing. So you can make that change there.
Michelle says, I don't see the stickers I applied. So what you want to make sure, Michelle, is that a few things. So you're going to want to check your filtered icons or your filter settings. So on your plans page, near the top left, near where it says list, there's that little circle with lines. When you hover over it, it says filter plans. Make sure that within your other sections, you do have events to be selected as viewable. It's not deselected. That will hide your events and stickers from your plans page. The other thing you can check is within your user settings, which is in the very top right corner, and go to your go to your display settings. So user settings, top right, display settings. Click on events and stickers on the left and make sure that show all holidays is toggled on as well. And that will make sure that your events are displayed, because your stickers are attached to events. So we just want to check all the boxes and make sure your events are selected to be visible in all places.
Perfect. And then Michelle, it looks like you were asking about adding more than just the title. So that would also be on your filter plans page. So we made sure that events were toggled on. So you can go in and you might have the other lesson sections toggled off. So I would recommend going in there, kind of looking in to see if there's anything that is hidden. But yeah, it should be filter plans for that one. And then it's Sandy. Can I view past year's events? I went to a previous year and it starts with the times and dates, but not the plans or events. So Sandy, I would say go ahead and email us so that we can take a peek in your account and just, make sure everything is as it should be, because you should be able to view when you go to that previous school year, you should be able to see your events and your plans and classes and all those things. So yeah, definitely give us an email.
Linda's asking, in the lesson planning section, there is a homework section. How do we make it so the students can view these homework assignments? So if you wanted your students to be able to view anything that you entered within your plan book, you can set up a view link, and that just makes a clickable URL to your plans. You could copy and paste that out to them, and they would then be able to view anything within your plans that you made visible. So the way to create a view link, and maybe Shelby, you could drop that into the chat as I'm talking, but if you head to user settings in the top right and then go to your sharing options, over on the left, you have a view students link. This is where you can decide what you want visible on your student view link. So maybe within the view items, you want to deselect everything except homework. Maybe they don't need to see your events. Maybe they don't need to see the full lesson. You just want them to see that homework section. You could do that in the view items. You would adjust the classes that are visible and then click save. And then you could have those links emailed to you or download them. And then you could share those out with your students and they could click the link. It's going to update as long as you continue to update your plans. You won't have to share this link with them again. As you add things, it'll add to their view link as well, so they can just click and view those there. And it's a view only link, so they won't be able to edit anything in your plans, but they will be able to click. So if you added like attachments or PDFs that you wanted them to be able to access, you can do that on your view link as well.
Perfect. And then Cortez, can IEP accommodations be put in your lesson plan? So yes, I would say go ahead. I've seen a lot of special education teachers who will create that My List in their account, and then they can add those accommodations into their plans directly. The other piece that you could do that I've also seen is folks will go into their lesson layout and add another tab that says, accommodations. And then that makes it a little more flexible in that you can just type directly in there, or you can copy paste maybe from the IEP. So yeah, either one of those I think should work for you.
All right, Josh is asking, what is the best way to program in if you teach two separate sections of the same class so that it uses the same daily lessons by default, but you can adjust day by day? For example, if one class gets behind the other lessons, maybe shifted. You're kind of explaining two different things. So I would schedule that class twice on the same day, as we showed earlier in our session on the classes page, how you could drag and drop that class onto your schedule again so that you had two sessions of it on the same day or whichever days they take place. When you say you want them to use the same lessons by default, you can set up our sharing type replica and set up your class lessons to replicate with yourself. That will automatically update both classes. So let's say I type into my 9 a.m. reading the lesson, it's going to automatically apply to my reading at 2 p.m. that I teach the same content. However, you're not going to be able to do what you mentioned later in your question, which is make adjustments independent to each class. So if you're looking to do that, what I would recommend instead is that you keep those two classes scheduled on the same day or whenever they take place. You plan your lesson accordingly. And then I would just use that lesson actions menu, which is the 3-dot icon that I covered most recently here. Click copy all, and then use the lesson action menu in the other class and click paste. Just do that for the lessons that you have. It's 2 clicks, and then you can make those adjustments. So if one section of that class is slightly behind, that makes you free to edit those independently from one another. You can still copy the content over easily, but then you can make those independent edits. Whereas if you set up replica, you're never going to be able to do that. So again, I would just schedule that class twice in the same day, and then use that action menu to quickly paste that between the classes and then make your adjustments as needed.
All right. And Jacqueline says, is there a sticker for teacher work days? I can't find it. So there is actually a sticker that is called Planning Day. And that's usually the one that folks will use when they have those teacher work days. So you can go in and you can search either planning or day or, the whole phrase, and it should be there for you.
Michelle, how do I add early release stickers for every Wednesday? That's a good question. So you can actually add from your events page. You would, again, go to that Planbook bar on the left and head down to events. We're going to click the plus icon to add a new event. And this is where you would add that repeated event. So if whatever the event is going to be, you would add your sticker to the event. And then your start and end date is going to be the entire date range that you want that to take place. So the start date would be the first Wednesday. You want that to take place. The end date would be the last Wednesday. You want that event to take place, which could be, all the way in May or whenever it may be. Once you extend your event date, you're going to get an additional drop down that's going to ask you, do you want this event to repeat daily, repeat weekly, or repeat bi-weekly? So if you want it every Wednesday, you would click repeat weekly. And once you have your sticker added to that event, then that would apply that sticker every week on Wednesday for the remainder of your school year. So you would do that with a repeated event.
Perfect. And thank you, Michelle, for your kind words. We appreciate that. Mary says, another template lesson plan question. If I updated the template for ELA like 3 weeks into the school year, should I create a completely new one instead so it does not knock out the teacher's already recorded plans for the first 3 weeks? So instead of editing, just create a new one. Yeah, so it sounds like you're talking about the lesson layout there, which is the little tabs that you go in and specify for teachers. I would say, in this case, if you can, I would avoid updating the lesson layout as much as possible. But if you do need to go in and make a change, I would say to either you can edit but keep it as close to the original one as possible, or it might be easier, honestly, to just go ahead and create a brand new one. But again, I would try to keep them as similar as possible, because our system, the only thing it knows to do when the lesson layout changes is that text 1 goes into text 1 and text 2 goes into text 2. So it's pretty granular that way.
Michelle says, how do I change the font so that I do not have to adjust every lesson? So a couple of things to check here, Michelle. The first is in your user settings, again, in the very top right. Within your display settings, you can adjust the, right on the main page of your display settings here, you can adjust your default font. You have a font family, a size, and you can do that all here, again, within user settings in the top right, display settings. You can also, within your user settings, if you click on lesson layouts, the same way that we showed you how to edit your lesson layout or customize, if you click that little pencil icon all the way over to the right and click format, this allows you to apply the font you want to each of your lesson sections, and that will change that for each. So if you want the lesson section of all of your lessons to be Tahoma, you can do that here within your lesson layouts by clicking on that format option, which is that pencil all the way over to the right.
Thank you guys so much for your kind words. And then Sandy says, can I archive past years? So this is the only active year. So at this time, teachers are not able to archive their own years from your end. Typically, our system will only archive something if it's been, 3 years since it's been opened. But if you would prefer to archive your past year, that's something that we can do from our end. We can go and we can archive that past year so that you don't see it and you just see the current year. So yes, give us an email, support@planbook.com, and then we can get you archived from there. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You guys asked some really great questions. Thank you so much for that. One last chance to scan that QR code and sign in if you have not already. And be sure, so there is our support email. Again, you can give us a call, and there's our help center linked in there again as well. Like me and Devin said, we are going to send out that follow-up email. So it's going to have the recording in there so that you guys have access to that. And then later on, we will eventually have it uploaded to YouTube as well, so you can access it there. But yeah, we really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much again. And if you have friends or colleagues that would like to come to a live session, we have more of them that are happening throughout the month of August. So I will send the link to sign up in the follow-up email as well. So it is going to be the same agenda. So if you want to come again, or if you have a friend who wants to join us, then that is definitely an option. And then me and Devin will hang on here for just another minute or so in case there's any follow-up questions. But if you have everything you need, we hope you have a great start to the school year. Thanks for joining us today.